Hello, Leo Bray here, coming to you on behalf of Kristen Olson's Urban Yoga Center in Palm Springs. Please visit us online at urbanyoga.org or Kristen Olson's Urban Yoga Center on Facebook. Check out our schedule of daily Zoom classes and see opportunities to join us in person Thursday through Sunday mornings. And there's also a tip jar online there. You can make contributions to support the classes we offer on Zoom, which become these YouTube videos. And I say it like that because today we don't have an 8:15 a.m. class because no one logged on. That happens sometimes. And because people like to get new videos regularly, we record for Zoom anyway, so we can upload it to YouTube. And because folks have expressed a desire to have some shorter practices available for when they don't have a whole hour to spend on a YouTube video practicing, we make some shorter clips when no one comes to class. So we'll have one of those today. I'll have one of those today. You'll have it whenever. Maybe it's later today. Maybe it's some other day. And we'll just work on a couple of postures for deeper hip opening. We'll play around a bit with lizard pose and with pigeon pose. So these are two common poses that we do to wring out the hips, to get at some of the things that get stuck in the hips. In the mundane physical sense of excess tension and fascial adhesions, but also in the energetic sense, things get stuck in the hips. It's said that we have issues in our tissues. And most of us are aware that we carry excess tension here in the neck and shoulders. People in general seem more aware of that. You may not be aware of what's going on in your hips. That's very similar, especially if you're newer to practice. Once you start practicing yoga, we talk about hips all the time and we work on them a lot. But I know prior to me practicing yoga, I gave very little, if any, thought to hips and carrying excess tension there. So the first pose we'll look at is lizard pose. Now, as with any deeper work, the more you do before you get to these postures, the deeper it will go. So you can do whatever you want for warming up. You might work with some lunges, some sun salutations. I'll make this a shorter video, so I'm not going to get into showing other warming up. And you could play with practicing lizard or pigeon cold without a warm up. You're not going to get as far into it, and you want to go even more gently. So I recommend some sort of warming up before getting here. So lizard pose, we can start from a lunge. You want to be nice and long in your lunge. You could have blocks under your hands here to make it easier to get your knee between your chest and the floor. You want to disengage the back leg and the back foot. And then first thing I'm going to do is move my hand to the inside of my foot here. And maybe a better way to show that, use the other mat, the other point of view here. So both hands to the inside of that foot. And then we can start to wiggle the foot over and let the knee dip. Now, depending on how it feels in your body, in your hip, depending on what's going on in your knee and your ankle, maybe you rock onto the edge of your foot like that, pinky edge of your foot, and maybe the knee keeps going down and the foot can keep sliding over. So maybe your hands come forward like that, and that's all. You might come down on your forearms. You could have blocks under your forearms here. There's a block. So maybe you're way up high like that. Maybe. Forearms in a block. Maybe the block goes lower. Maybe the forearms come to the ground. And even with the block, you can explore going deeper. Just wiggling your block forward. Setting my block aside and using my hands. So different ways you could do it. And maybe the foot stays there. Maybe the foot goes over some more. Then you can let the neck disengage. And you can just hang out for as many breaths as you want, seeing what happens in your hip there. Maybe there's a little more release, a little more lowering. And when you feel ready to come out, you want to come out slowly and gradually, just as you came in. And maybe you use more propping as you come out to get more height and can wiggle the foot back out and plant it again, eventually coming back to your lunge. So from the side, I'll just do it again on the other leg. One, to keep things balanced out for myself, and two, to show you just a different point of view on the posture from here. Start to slide the foot towards center and rock onto the edge of your foot. And it's okay if you don't rock onto the edge of your foot. Maybe your body doesn't want to do that. There was a time where my foot didn't want to do this. So maybe it's just the foot sliding in. Maybe the knee only leans out a little. Each day is different. Each side is different. And we're all different. So don't expect your lizard to look like my lizard. You can think of sending your breath into your hips. That can help release some of that stuff we're working to wring out. And remember to take your time when you come out and take the movements that feel good afterwards. So that might be coming to a resting pose. It might be your body's craving something more active, and you come up to a downward facing dog. Maybe you stand, maybe you walk around a bit, maybe you lie on your back. Now, pigeon pose, we can start in a lunge as we did just now for lizard and get to pigeon in a similar way. I like a more active entry into pigeon, and I like a bit of preparation. I will show a little more warming up before pigeon. Pigeon goes into the hips even more deeply. So I'll do a little something first that I find is great preparation, and it's just one of the options that you might do before coming to pigeon. So I like to come from downward facing dog, just my preference with pigeon. I'd rather do this than do it from the lunge. I like to lift the leg, bend the knee, and stack the hips. You might flip your dog here if you're partial to that. Flex your foot. Make circles with your knee in each direction. And then as part of the preparation, I'm partial to including, I like to come to star pose, which is like this. Knee comes towards the chest. Foot goes over to the side. Rest the pinky edge of the foot on the ground. If you want to go further from there, you might come to fallen star, like that. I just find this is a nice preliminary series before pigeon. So for pigeon, as I exhale, I'm going to draw my knee towards my right wrist, my ankle towards my left wrist, and I'm letting the whole lower leg land on the floor there. And then let the other knee down, the other toes uncurl. So with lizard, this knee, this calf was in the air and the foot was on the ground. Now the whole lower leg is on the ground. And before I lower down into my pigeon, I like to lift up and open the midline like this. Press into the hands, lift the head, lift the chest. And then as you exhale, walk forward, like melting forward. And like we did with lizard, just explore. Maybe you're here, maybe you come down lower. And keep letting your pigeon pose evolve as your hips open and settle. Maybe this knee walks back. Maybe these elbows come forward, or maybe your head comes right down on the floor, or rests on your hands, or rests on a block. And as you're in your pigeon pose, various things might happen aside from the obvious physical things, because you're wringing out things that are energetically stuck in your hips. Odd things seem to happen sometimes. You might feel suddenly sad or giggly or angry, and there's no conscious thought associated with this sudden shift. The good news is you don't have to worry about what that is. You don't have to figure it out. You can just exhale and let go of it. It's just some old stuff that's stuck in the hips. Let it go. And as with coming out of lizard, we want to go slowly to come out of our pigeon. Now, some things I like to do, let's say come back up nice and tall like this, opening the heart. You could play around with taking a bind here. You can bend this back leg and reach back. I like to use the opposite hand. Some people are partial to using the hand on the same side. It makes me very tippy. I want to tip over when I do that. But I'm going to turn my head and my chest forward, keeping my shoulders more in line with my hips. So I'm not peeling my shoulder back so much. Deep stretch in the quadriceps on this leg here. You can release that. And I find it's very good after doing pigeon to come back to the three-legged dog. And again, bend the knee, stack the hips, flex the foot, and make those circles with the knee. Because being in pigeon pose pinches off your femoral artery, and this helps speed circulation back through that large vessel. I'm also partial to, after I do that, inhale, lift the heels, maybe come onto the toes, and exhale, lower the heels. I'll do this on the other side to incorporate something I didn't include on that side. And I'm doing this sort of fast forward, and you don't have to do that. I'd recommend you not do that. There's no need to rush. I'm just going to do this with a little less talking. That's really all I mean by the fast forwarding. I don't have to repeat all the various notes I did on the first side here, right, for a shorter video. And maybe you don't like doing star and fallen star. Maybe there's something else. Maybe you'd like to spend more time with flipping your dog. Oh, really take your time. So one thing I didn't say on the first side is to check the alignment of the back leg and see that leg is aligned with your hip. If it's off to one side, that's going to affect how your hips open as you lower into your posture. So remember to press away from the floor. Inhale, lift your head and chest, maybe even 10 fingers. As you exhale, come down and forward. So the point I didn't address was about the alignment of your pelvis to the floor as you settle down. So my hips are pretty squared to the floor, but that's not always the case. You might find you're rocking to one side or to the other, and your pelvis isn't squared to the floor. And what you could do then is take a block or a pillow or a folded blanket and wedge it between that hip and the floor to help square you off. And maybe it might be the other hip. You might be needing a prop on the other side. It can be either side. So it might be hard to feel if your hips are squared to the floor, but you can look and see how you're lined up with the floor. And just let your body melt and hang out there, seeing what happens. Maybe your hips will lower some more. You can scoot your knee back. Maybe you can scoot your elbows forward. But it's about the journey, not the destination. So just see what your hips want. Don't look for a target. It's a direction. Never know how much the hips are going to open and settle. You might be really close to the floor, think that's as low as you're going to go, and on the next exhale, there's a little more. As you come back up, if you want, You might explore that bind. Now maybe you can't grab your foot. That's okay. Maybe you wrap a strap around your foot. Some people reach both hands back to grab the foot. Some people can get the foot to the back of the head or tuck the foot into their armpit. I can't do any of that. That's all right. Everybody's different. Now, after you do deep hip work, like lizard or pigeon, it's a good idea to include, after that in your practice, a deep heart opener of some sort to be an energetic counter to working with lizard or pigeon. So that might be camel, might be bridge pose, play with some bridge pose floating up and down, or it might be fish pose, which is a very strong heart opener. Or maybe something else, maybe lying on your back with lots of bolster under your torso, open your heart out. And lots of ways to open your heart. Maybe you just play around with some cobra, some upward facing dog, any kind of heart opener that you like. It's a good idea to focus, spend some time focusing on heart opening after the hip opening. So there's our short video for today, a little deep hip work. Lead into it with whatever you want and follow it up with whatever you want. I know the reason you're looking for a shorter video is that your time is limited, so you choose what your warm-up is, what your cool down is. Feedback and questions are always welcome. That's not just for the full classes or for being live with me on Zoom, but also for those watching these videos later on. So let me know what you think. Feedback helps me become a better teacher. And make sure to visit us at urbanyoga.org or Kristen Olson's Urban Yoga Center on Facebook to check out our schedule and visit the tip jar. Have a wonderful day.